r/AskReddit. Ex-homeless redditors, what was the scariest thing that you ever saw on the streets? There is a drainage ditch in my area that the local homeless people tend to bed down in. A few years ago, when I found myself destitute, I spent one night down there. That night I witnessed a Molotov get thrown into another dude's spot, which led to a huge fire that ran rampant through the area. Yeah, I bought a tent the next day and started camping in the local mountains. I was just sleeping around where other guys in my city sleep, then just see some teen stabbing one of the homeless guys multiple times, ran away from there, never turned back. Waking up to a shotgun being pointed directly at my head. I wasn't truly homeless, but had no money or bank card, and was trying to get back to my parents following nearly being strangled to death by my ex. The actual fight happened whilst we were out, so I had no spare, no clothes. I'd left my wallet at his, and only had a dying phone on me. I tried getting money for a train, but only really managed enough for a bus fare to the next town, and decided to try hitchhiking. Late into the night I gave up, and managed to sneak into a barn, where I was able to get comfortable enough to sleep. Turns out I didn't close the door enough, and a farmer found me in the morning, after taking his gun to investigate. He woke me up. I think he coughed loudly, with the gun painted at me, and I nearly shat myself. It asked me what I thought I was doing in his barn, and quizzed me on how I got in. He asked to see my arms, before he lowered the gun and he started chatting. He was quite nice though, and after talking to him for a while he took me back to his house, and fed me, and let me have a shower. I had been homeless for a couple weeks now, and had made friends with this couple. They seemed pretty chill, but had a bit of a drinking problem. Anyway, one night I was sleeping, could hear some commotion going on, couldn't make out who it was or what was going on, until my buddy comes and sits on my sleeping bag, blood pumping out of his neck, like full on. Every time his heart beat it would splurt out, not under huge pressure, but it was pretty bad. I asked him what happened, and he said he think his missus had cut his throat with a Stanley blade. He was so drunk he was not aware of how bad his injury was, and insisted I did not call an ambulance. So I called the police, they called the ambulance. I see the dude a couple days later, still homeless, scar on his neck. He's ever so grateful the nurse had told him how lucky he was. He was literally a couple millimeters away from dying that night. I'm a woman in my early 20s. Not my brightest decision, but I slept in my car for several weeks when I was completely out of money. Every night I parked in a small cul-de-sac. As far as I knew, the area was office only, so I didn't take anybody's parking lot, and in the morning I left. I worked a lot, so usually I slept like a log. One night though I woke up, feeling anxious for some reason. I looked up and saw a softly illuminated window right above me. Nice, warm light as if from a grandma bedside lamp. I freaked out a bit and fumbled for my keys. I better sit the rest of the night out at McDonald's or something. Then I noticed a silhouette not far away. A man was standing still and watching me. He didn't knock on my window glass, didn't try to talk or anything. He was just watching. I booked it out of that cul-de-sac real quick. You know, the thing that freaks me out the most is not even the fact that he could assault or rob me then, but the realization that he may have watched me every other night, but I was too tired to notice that earlier. The thought that someone would find your camp and ruin your shit was a real concern. Also, just finding some here to sleep that is secure. One morning, early, I was sleeping in an abandoned warehouse up a set of stairs nearly in the rafters, and was woken by 4 raccoons like 4 feet from me eating my bag. Having to shit in the middle of the night is also awful. Being homeless is only scary for a couple of days. There's depression and boredom that are your real enemies. Your body and mind go into a sort of hyper survival mode and there is no room for fear. So I lived in my car, but I remember seeing this woman and talking to her outside a store when I was just chilling eating some food, and she told me she had been homeless literally her entire life and had never slept on a proper bed in her life. I asked how old she was. She told me she was 53. It was scary to me because I realized that could have easily been me. I think about that woman every single day. I was working in a mountain town and couldn't afford rent, even with 2 jobs. One night I was wasted after work. Me and a work friend were always there by ourselves closing, so the bar was free game. Left work at 2 AM, walked the hour and a half back to my tent outside of town. While being stalked by a mountain lion. I assume I looked injured and could be an easy meal. It was terrifying. I had a digital camera with me, so I just kept pointing it in the area of the ridge where I could hear it walking and flashed repeatedly. Made it home safe. Another night after closing, different campsite. I must have smelled like a huge gyro. After working a double at Pittis in Paradise, got into my sleeping bag in my tent. I was just about to doze off when I heard big crunches of a black bear sniffing me out. I was frozen with terror. The bear put his about against the nylon inches above my head. Hot steam on my face. I had pulled the sleeping bag up to my cheeks, petrified when I slapped the bear's nose above my forehead. It was an involuntary reaction, and I felt stupid, but I spooked the bear, and it took off. I got an apartment with some friends soon after. I was homeless in Hawaii for a month after I got out of the army. Nothing I saw was ever like oh shit am I, but there are a lot of homeless meth heads wandering the streets. I watched people having arguments with a spoon they were holding, people eating sand at the beach, people wearing weak old shit caked pants. Meth is fucking wild. Stick to weed and shrooms. I'm currently homeless and this is why I stay out of homeless shelters and away from other homeless. Fist fights at 2 AM, loud arguments, people trying to get into your shit while you sleep. You don't get sleep in those places anyway and it's all risk with no benefit. When you own nothing, you can't afford to lose the 2 shirts, pair of pants, 3 pair of socks, cell phone, and phone charger. Lucky enough to have a cell phone with no service, but workable with Wi-Fi. Can't lose it. I couch surf ATM, which has its risks, but overall it's much safer than the shelters. Downside being I never know where I'll be, so finding work is near impossible. Almost had an apartment and work at one point, but roommate started hearing voices and kicked me out before I could be added to the lease. Previous roommate, 2 ago, that put me in the homeless situation also started hearing voices and straight up disappeared on my ass. I think I must drive people crazy or something. Stayed in my car for 9 months. I worked and past 6 months been couch surfing. Work when I can afford to. At some point I'll run out of couches and be forced into shelters and around other homeless and that scares the shit out of me. At some point I'll have to devolve to becoming accustomed to living on the streets, doing anything to survive. If I don't find someone willing to put me up till I can get back on my feet. Which won't happen. Everyone who's let me crash longer than one night has been a creep with no respect. Thanks for watching. Don't forget to subscribe if you enjoyed it.